Attention all Class D personnel. Please enter the containment chamber. Please approach SCP-173 for testing.
Greetings, humans, and welcome once again to this side of the woods. I am here to bring you somewhat of a different video this time. I am going to be talking about the fall. So, before we get started, I just wanted to mention that, first of all, it's been quite a while since I last uploaded a video to YouTube, and most importantly, it's been quite a while since I last uploaded a YouTube exclusive video. So as you well know, I usually just uploaded some replays from Hunt Showdown from my streams on Twitch. Now, since I am abroad in Germany right now, I cannot really stream Hunt Showdown because my laptop cannot handle the game so well. So, instead of that, I've been playing a series of different games. Now, I wanted to do this video based on Hunt Showdown, but not having the means of getting the right footage for it, I decided to switch to this other game, which I streamed some time ago on my channel. This game in question is The Fall. This video is going to be a little bit of a lore explaining video, where I explain a little bit about the game, first of all, then I go into lore, and then I will give a bit of a review about the game. So, of course, needless to say, when we get to the middle section, I will issue a spoiler alert warning because the lore will probably spoil some of the story. And as I will mention in the first section of the game, or the video, this game is very story driven, so getting a spoiler in the story could, potentially ruin the experience when playing the game. So before we get in, I just wanted to say that, as I said, I might be a bit rusty making YouTube videos, and of course, this is the very first time I make a video like this, so I would really appreciate it if you guys could go down to the comment section below and give me an opinion of what you thought about this video and how I could improve. This will always help me provide better content for you guys, so thank you in advance. And without further ado, let's go right in. First of all, let's start talking about what this game is. The Fall is an adventure game with 2D graphics. It also has some horror elements and some basic combat mechanics. This game is also more of a graphic novel than anything else, so it is extremely story-driven and it all revolves around a story. With that in mind, we must once again remind that if we kind of spoil the story, we kind of miss out on some of the things. So if you're planning to play the game, please skip the next section. So continuing with where we left off, we in this game play as an artificial intelligence called Arid. Arid is an artificial intelligence on board a combat suit. Of course, with this in mind, we can already establish like a time sequence where we're clearly somewhere in the future. The game starts with Arid, or the combat suit rather, falling from the sky, or maybe even space, onto some sort of planet. We know for sure that this planet is probably not Earth, so we know that we're several years in the future where humans have already colonized some other planets. Of course, the name of the game, The Fall, already gives us an idea that we in fact fall. So indeed, yes, the first cutscene we get is just falling from the sky onto the ground. After what I might assume are a few hours, Arid boots up and runs a few diagnostics. Now, It is kind of worrying because after running a few diagnostics, it concludes that the pilot that is inside the suit is unresponsive, and that, probably due to the impact, requires immediate medical attention. That is something that we really have to look for, because after all, we are an artificial intelligence that's there to serve that pilot. As a matter of fact, we operate under 3 basic parameters. The first one is that I must not malinterpret reality. The second one is that I must not endanger my pilot. And the third one is that I must save my pilot under all means necessary. So, of course, we start walking into wherever we have landed, which starts being just a small cavern that we have created ourselves upon impact. But as soon as we exit the cavern, it is clear that we have actually landed in some facility of some sorts. Well, that same area that we enter is enough to set a few things in, which is pretty much as far as I can go without driving into spoiler territory, because after all, it's the very first thing we see when we start the game. So this thing is, first of all, this facility is obviously man-made. Humans have been making stuff here. We know that because Arid does kind of recognize the droids that are scattered around the floor. Of course, these droids are broken, and they have been broken for quite some time. So we also know that this facility, wherever we are, has been abandoned for several years at least. And as soon as we advance a little bit more, we find another combat suit, just like us, hanged on a crucifix, with the pilot dead inside. So it is clear that there is something malevolent here, something that is hostile, and that we have to look out for. So with all this in mind, we set on our adventure to save our pilot. We are now going to drive into the second section of the game, where we drive a little bit more into the story and the lore. As I mentioned at the beginning, this game is extremely story-driven. So, of course, this is a part that may include major spoilers. Needless to say, this is a big spoiler alert. Please, viewer discretion is advised. If you're planning to play this game or want to experience this game in any other way, please skip this section, go to the very end where I review a little bit my opinion about the game, but don't watch this because it will probably spoil a great part of the story for you. So now that I have issued that spoiler warning, let's go drive into the story and the lore. So first of all, this is something that we end up learning a little bit further on. We are in a facility that was under the control of a company called Domesticon. From the name, we can already guess that this company was specialized in building domestic robots, or robots to help you in the household. We can already imagine that in a society in the future where robotics are something that is so commonplace, we'll probably have robots for nearly anything, even for mundane tasks that we want to do at home. So, more in particular, the plant we are in is a recycling and repurposing plant for decommissioned or deviant androids that are for domestic purposes. So basically, if your android got broken down, it would be sent here. It would be, repurposed, it would be repaired, and it would go under some diagnostics. If it managed to pass the diagnostics, it would be fine to either be returned to their owner or to be resold if the owner had opted to buy a new machine. However, if the machine did not follow the tests or, didn't pass the tests, it would be decommissioned and it would be scrapped for, recycling purposes. So that's the type of facility we are in. With this in mind, we obviously learn that there is someone, or rather something, which is in charge of all this process. This something is another android known as the Caretaker. We actually meet the Caretaker almost at the beginning of the game, which actually questions us and questions our validity and our purpose here. This character is the caretaker who looked after this facility. Now, shortly after talking to him, you can probably start thinking that this android is in fact faulty, it's in fact deviant, and is actually malfunctioning. We have several things to think, we have several clues that make us think that. First of all, he immediately calls you deviant and immediately says that you are broken without even allowing you to explain yourself really. He just asks, what's your purpose? My purpose is to protect my pilot. Can the pilot prove it? Your answer is no, because he needs medical help. Can you please help me? And he immediately says, you're deviant, I am going to decommission you. So he is very aggressive, he is very bossy, likes to be in command, and obviously has some serious issues going on. You also clearly realize that he is malfunctioning shortly after you manage to get into a maintenance shaft where you find decommissioned robots as well as some dead bodies strapped to the tables. So this actually reveals some important things. First of all, this machine does not distinguish between humans and machines. If a human breaks protocol, it will automatically enact the same measures as if it was a machine. It will quote-unquote decommission it or kill the human and then scrap them, which means they will chop them up into pieces. Of course, with this in mind, we can already start thinking that probably whoever crucifixed that other combat suit was probably the caretaker. This is later on confirmed with the caretaker actually placing a cross right in front of us. So of course, he is up to some point behind this whole mess. You can also think that whatever the caretaker is doing here probably has caused this whole problem altogether. So as we drive into the game and into the story, we have to end up going under some tests and some diagnostics to be able to access the medical bay. In order to do so, we have to pretend to be a domestic robot. Of course we aren't, we are a combat suit. So we are going to be cheesing our way through the puzzles. The caretaker does acknowledge that and once again calls us deviant and liars. So as we progress in the game, you actually start to learn more about the story of what has been happening here, because in order to cheese some of the puzzles, you go into certain restricted areas, including maintenance shafts and other areas that wouldn't be accessible for the normal robots. First of all, this area has been abandoned for a very, very, very long time. Maybe saying years, like I said before, was a little bit short. I would actually say maybe decades, in fact. The reason why we think this is, first of all, there is a huge fungal growth all over the place. And secondly, there is actually another organic life form in the form of gigantic slugs, which is also around the area. So once that we have considered this, we also learn some other stuff about what happened here. These can be found in the form of notes and logs that are scattered around these maintenance shafts. These were probably notes left behind by some of the maintenance workers to another maintenance worker. At the beginning they start being quite, toned down, like, hey guys, I've received this machine, which is, it's a very good battery, blah blah blah, you can use it for this, that, I'm going to use it here for now. So that's basically like clues to solve puzzles as well as information about what had happened there. However, there's a moment where you actually find a note saying that they have implemented this new caretaker, which is obviously the droid you have met before, that is already walking around, and that people find him overly aggressive and even uncanny. So one of the issues that really kind of upset me about this character, that made me instantly think bad of them, was the fact that they are covered in holographic plating. This holographic plating allows them to, let's say, adopt a different form. More in particular, he likes to adopt the form of some of the former employees in this area. So, of course, someone like me who has a little bit of autonomophobia, which is the fear of mannequins, finds that a little bit too disturbing to start with. But anyways, if you were in this situation, even without having a little bit of that phobia, you would probably also find it quite scary if the robot in front of you looked like a complete clone from you, only in a glitched and broken way. That would be pretty disturbing. So the logs like this start mentioning how the caretaker was like scrutinizing the workers as if they were under his command and not the other way around. He would actually be observing them, making note of their failures, making note of their mistakes, and asking them whenever they made a mistake. There was a moment where one of the maintenance workers was sent into a maintenance shaft to repair some malfunction. He never came back. And the funny thing was, right after he disappeared, the caretaker would actually often take his form. After seeing the shit that you have been seeing around, it is very easy to conclude that yeah, the caretaker killed that person. And needless to say, as you find other logs, you find out that the caretaker has kind of gone rogue and is actually killing the people that are here. Later on, you find a dead body, which is actually fresh. It still has meat on it. So obviously, this person has been here quite recently in regards to, the other skeletons that you have found scattered around the area. Of course, you end up finding a log, which essentially is a way to solve the next puzzle, and blah blah blah. But of course, it does show a little bit of the lore that's happened here. And this is probably one of the logs that shows a bit of the more outside aspect of what has happened here. The facility from Domesticon has in fact of course been abandoned for several years. But the way it was abandoned was rather strange. Apparently, this plant was working for several years and then suddenly stopped working. It was literally shut down without a warning, and in fact, the company does no longer acknowledge that they even have this plant to begin with. This leads us to think that whatever happened here was so bad that they would actually prefer to ignore the fact that it even happened. Of course, these people who had come here were scavenger hunters. They had come here to find loot. But instead of loot, they met the caretaker. The caretaker did kill one of them and left the other one to die because he had been attacked by one of the slugs and was slowly dying away because of the acid. So that does show a pretty grim idea of what was happening here. Now, after we have solved some puzzles, we end up going and doing some pretty disturbing stuff, like killing all the robots that were functioning inside the plant by pressing a button and deactivating them. That, of course, it does make sense up to some point, morally speaking, because yes, we are killing robots, but yes, it's more important to save the life of our pilot. However, after doing that, there is a moment where it clearly becomes apparent that one of the parameters that we have been operating on is broken. The one of we will not malinterpret reality, because it becomes clear that we have actually lied in several occasions, even without realizing. After that, we also start realizing that hey, I have actually put my pilot in danger several times to be able to override some of the settings. So I have broken another of the parameters. So this starts to happen right after our last encounter with the caretaker, where he once again calls us deviant and malfunctioning, to the point that we actually realize that in fact he is himself malfunctioning but he's also right about the fact that we are also malfunctioning. So, of course, that is something important to take into account. Something is happening to Arid that she cannot control. She actually starts calling the pilot by his name, Colonel Joseph. So it becomes clear that, a little bit like in Detroit Become Human, this artificial intelligence is reaching the point where it's actually starting to feel for itself. So there isn't much left from the story to go on from here. But after this major breakthrough, our artificial intelligence starts to slowly go into, let's say, madness, because it realizes that many of the parameters that it had been programmed with and many of the, let's say, protocols it was supposed to follow have been broken some time ago, and it didn't even realize it. So little by little, our things start to get more and more glitchy, up till the point where we actually have kind of a mental breakdown, and that is pretty much how the ending of the game is foreshadowed. Now, there is another set of things that are a little bit more of a personal opinion about what's going on here. We know for sure that there was some sort of mission going on here. After all, there was a pilot and there was a suit when we arrived here. Problem is, no one seems to remember what the mission is. I am guessing that this mission is probably something to do with taking out the caretaker. In fact, I would be probably willing to say that the actual Domesticon had hired these mercenaries or these soldiers to take out the caretaker because it was deemed too dangerous to be left alive. However, after seeing the end, it does really make us think if Arid was sent there for a different reason. Obviously, the pilot we had found there had been there for some time already and had a mission, but Arid might have been slightly a different reason. We don't know exactly why, and maybe we will never know unless we play the next game. So, that said, I'm going to go to talk about what I thought about this game and give a little bit of a review. Of course, this is my personal opinion. Everyone else can have a different opinion, and people can find different ideas or different theories about these last parts. So, with that out of the way, I am going to end this video giving a little bit of an opinion of what I thought about this game. I think that it was a good idea to kind of give a final review at the very end, mostly due to the fact that I kind of want to show my opinion about this game in case someone is actually thinking about buying it or thinking about playing it. So my opinion overall about this game was that it was a very good game. You can clearly see that Over the Moon Studios has actually put some good effort into this game. The story is very good, it is engaging, and you actually do want to know more about what the hell's going on in this facility. So it kind of hooks you up, and you really want to learn what is going on there and what you can do to actually save your pilot. So it does really engage you in that way. It is, however, a game that I did find very short. It is a game that I wasn't expecting to be so short, but once again I do mention that I really think it was worth it. So that is just a little small setback, to say it somehow, where you could actually have made the game a little bit longer, but it's okay because this game was a good one. I did find a few issues with it though. First of all was that the controls were a tiny bit wonky. They were a little bit hard to get used to at the beginning, but they weren't like a crippling factor like other games that I have played, where you could actually not play the game because of the controls. This one, on the other hand, did have complicated controls at first, but you would eventually get used to them, and they weren't much of an issue after that. So the next issue that I have with the game and probably the last one I really have with it, is that some of the puzzles were a little bit too complicated in the sense that they didn't really give you enough clues to know how to effectively solve them following the game mechanics. So for you to have an idea, most of the clues are very easy to figure out for yourself, and the puzzles are kind of easy to figure out for yourself. However, the real question comes when you actually have to execute your plan or your deduction on how to solve the clue. There was one in particular that did cause me certain trouble, which was one of the civic tests where I had to help lady to cross the street. Now, the rails were broken, so the lady got stuck and never actually got to cross the street. Now, I had already thought if there was a way to dislodge the lady and carry her to the other side, then I would pass the test. Of course, that was indeed what I had to do. Turns out, I was exactly right when I had thought about that idea. Problem was, I had no idea on how to actually solve it. In fact, I had to Google it and find out what to do. So, were there clues about it? Yes, they were, but they were quite obscure, and it was very hard to find the solution in a way that you would say, well, it made me think, but in a good way. So, of course, when that happens, you do get a little bit frustrated. But there were only a few puzzles that had that in it. A couple of puzzles that got me stuck because I wasn't really knowing what the game was expecting me to do to solve them. But apart from that, as I said before, this game was really worth it. In spite of it having about less than half positive reviews on Epic, it was still a very good game in my opinion. Maybe people did give it a bad review because of the puzzles, as I mentioned, and maybe the game mechanics, but I think that they were just minor setbacks and did not ruin the experience at all. In fact, I think the story was very, very well made and very well combined with the game mechanics to give it kind of the feel of interaction that you want to get in one of these sort of graphic novel sort games. Of course, as I did mention, there is a second part of this game. The second part is one that I'm going to hold off for now, because I have learned that it is about the same length as the first game, but costs about double. Lots of reviews on that game actually do make emphasis on the fact that the clues and the puzzles are overly complicated sometimes. So if that's going to be the case, I think I'll hold back for now and won't play the second game. Luckily for the first game, the ending was something that was absolutely spectacular. I do like it when a game is good and does have a good ending. This game had both things. This game was fun to play, this game was engaging, made me want to come back to it, and the end was very satisfying. It did have a very interesting twist ending that I didn't see coming, even though it was foreshadowed, but it was still very, very surprising, to me at least, and I did like the ending a lot. That is something that you don't always get in some other games. Like, for example, I'm going to have to mention Remnant from the Ashes here. It is a fantastic game, it is wonderful, and I really recommend people playing that game. However, the ending was one of the probably worst endings I've ever seen in a video game. It was just, is this how the game ends? You have to be joking. That was my reaction when I ended that game. This game, on the other hand, did give me a very satisfying ending where I actually shut up on stream for a while, stared at the camera, and was contemplating the fact that I had actually got goosebumps at the end of the game. So if a game is able to achieve that, then I do call it kind of a success on that end. So it did have a good ending, it did have a good gameplay value to it, and this game is really one I would recommend. So if you haven't played it and you have kind of missed the spoiler area, or you think that the spoilers weren't that major, and you're thinking about whether you should get it or not, I highly recommend you do. On that side, I am going to end the video about now. So after that, I once again want to remind you guys that it is been quite some time since I last made a video like this, and it's the first time I ever make a video of this style. So that said, once again, I would really appreciate it if you guys gave me some feedback. Let me know if you liked what you saw. Let me know where I could improve, where I could add, and such. So all that type of feedback will help me improve in the way I make my videos and how I can get good content for you guys out. And once that I said this, I also will mention that I in fact do stream on Twitch, in case you hadn't gathered it from this video. So if you want to check my Twitch out, there is a link in the description below. I stream daily at around 10:30 Central European Time. So if you want to pass by, say hi, please do. I am not hungry usually on stream. That's a lie, but I don't like eating viewers, I swear. Usually. I only bite sometimes. So if you want to come by, please do. I'll be there. I will greatly appreciate that. So thanks once again for watching. If you liked what you saw, please consider hitting a like button and subscribing to the channel so that you get notified of my next videos. And that's it. Everyone take care. Arrgh.